Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the desert of the real, to AB Live. Welcome. It's Monday night. It's kind of unusual, but here we are as always. And I was thinking of the lyrics to Woodstock today by Joni Mitchell. They go, "We are stardust, we are golden, and we've got to get ourselves back to the garden." And it made sense. And tonight we are very happy to have back at the virtual Alexandria the Reverend Michael Carter. Michael, how are you? Thank you for coming back.
Miguel. Thanks for having me, man. I was looking forward to this today.
Oh, yes, me too. As we were talking before, the times have really changed since our last conversation in every way possible. And I'm just like, I didn't think this would ever happen, but they did. And in a way, I'm kind of glad, because this is weird times, don't you think?
Yeah. I mean, these are times like you read about or you see on TV or something, some like dystopian kind of future. I mean, I'm thinking, man, I got to have a passport, man, to show that I got a vaccine. I'm like, wow, is this real? But unfortunately, it's very real. Yeah, these are times. And but in some ways, not for everybody, pardon me, but it's made us start to think about what really matters. What's who and what is what's the word they use? Oh, I forgot. Essential. What a word. Now we have to find, you're essential, you're not so essential. But now, and things we took for granted, I talked to a couple of friends of mine, and they were talking about, I can't wait to be able to hug my grandchild, or things we just kind of took for granted. Now it's like we miss them. So maybe there's some lessons in that.
There always are. And for the audience, I see you already going into the chat room. Believe it or not, Vance, the Moondog, our producer, will be here. He's getting off of work, and I just sent him to the link. I completely forgot to send our producer the link to this show. I hope he forgives me. But we will definitely get to your questions, as always, in the chat room for Facebook and YouTube. Please put a lot of question marks or in all caps, and then we will forward these to Michael. And if you have any super chats, of course, that always helps to support. And these alternative platforms, although they're not so alternative, I was thinking today, Michael, there was a story in the news how for the first time ever, less than 50% of Americans are going to church. Christianity is sort
Yeah.
of taking it, and we talked about in our last show, the old mythology is not working. We talked about
Yes.
Yahweh and the killing of the oldest kids of the Egyptians, all that stuff. We need something new. At the same time, since you and I last talked, the idea of ufology and extraterrestrials is no longer fringe. It's no longer you see
Yes.
late at night in the History Channel or in a conference. The government's admitting it. Corporations are admitting it. It's no longer a cult, but it seems to be a rising, so dare I say, religion. As a Christianity is going one way, ufology, the stars are going another. Are you surprised how things have just changed in the
Well,
last 6 years?
yes and no. The old way wasn't working. And so what I think is happening, and I'm sure you've thought through this, at least with ufology, and I don't look at it as a religion, but it is the blending of science and religion. For so long, they've been like two distant cousins who don't speak to each other. And
Right.
so what we're learning is that you got to have both. You've got now. I mean religion in its best sense. I'm not talking about you don't believe what I believe, so let's beat you up, nail you to a tree, cut your head off. I'm not talking
Right.
about that. But it's okay to have a reverence for life and whatever that would mean. But we need both. And one thing that ufology brings is that you have these beings, certainly not all, who do have some type of spirituality, some knowledge of their presence in the universe, and they have the technology to travel in their starships or what have you. And I think this is more of where we're going to head. Einstein predicted it, that the religion of the future would be more, it wouldn't be this personal God, it would be more about our place in the universe, and the consciousness has changed.
Yes, indeed. Exciting times and an interesting pivot. And with us, we've got the Moondog Vance. Vance, I did confess to the audience, I forgot to send you the link while you were getting
Yeah,
off work. So I apologize.
that's okay. I'm slowly getting here.
Yes, yes. Getting off work on a Monday, starting
Oh,
out the week hard.
oh
Indeed.
God. I'm glad you made it, Vance.
Yep.
Happy Monday.
Oh, thanks. And glad to meet you, Reverend Carter.
It's my pleasure.
Awesome. Well, the audience knows about the questions. There's a few questions, but my first question, I was reading your book this weekend, Michael, A New World If You Can Take It. And it starts out with this really cool quote from Ghana. And the quote says, "It is not taboo to go back and fetch what you forgot."
Yeah.
Tell us more about that. So I love that quote.
Yeah, well, there's a word I'm looking at it. It's called Sankofa,
Yeah, I see it.
and yeah, and it's a what is it? A bird, or it's a bird, something going forward but looking backwards. And yeah, one doesn't want to get stuck in the past by any stretch of the imagination. But basically, what it's saying is we can learn from our past, and periodically we need to look back to glean those lessons as we move forward. Um, if not, you wind up in a world like we have now, where we seem to be making the same mistakes over and over and over again. And that's because we have amnesia. And so I thought that was just interesting. Yes, Sankofu, and it's a bird looking backwards. It's an old Ghanaian word from the language of Akan, and it just literally means looking forward but going back to reclaim the past.
Yes, indeed. And for the audience, Michael has written a lot of books beyond this about the extraterrestrial appearances in the Bible. Beyond that, books on consciousness and so far and so forth. And then I'm also thinking too, Michael, in our last interview, well, there were strange times. I remember we talked about the issue in Syria, and that's gone to shit. And then
Woo!
we also talked about Trayvon Martin. That issue has gotten
Yeah.
just out of control. So it's almost, but you were very hopeful. Are you still hopeful? I
I
myself am
am.
not so hopeful. Well, I
Well,
don't think I was then, but
well, Miguel, I'm only speaking for me. I can't afford not to be. I have a 15-year-old, a daughter, and I think that if you're not hopeful, in some ways, you can be part of the problem. And I'm not talking about this Pollyanna, oh, the Lord's going to take care of it or it'll all work out. No, we have our part to do. But we were talking about before the show, we touched on how this virus has taken lives as viruses do, has gotten people sick. I've had some family members ill from it. But again, it's made us change our priorities. So our consciousness has shifted, where we're saying the way that we used to live. Now, not everybody, you're never going to get everybody, but talking about what's essential. I mean, I was living here. I remember that bars could be open, restaurant bars, but schools couldn't be. And I was like, okay, I'm open minded, but I'm just trying to, and yes, mistakes were made and that kind of thing. But I am hopeful. It doesn't mean we will blow ourselves up, but I'm seeing people are changing. You're seeing it all over the world. People are saying you're not going to keep your foot on our necks, whether it's in Miramar, whether it's in Italy, whether it's in South America. There's this consciousness saying that the world can't keep going on the way it is. And we've got to do something before it's too late. And I think that's very hopeful. Is it messy? Of course. If you live in a democratic nation, democracy's messy, as we know, and you got to be vigilant with it. But I am hopeful, and in some ways, they're exciting times to be alive. You and I talk openly about UFOs, about religion. I mean, before we'd have been laughed off the air.
Yeah, indeed. I don't know what to make of it. I mean, I would say, what's your advice for humanity, or when you go to church and you talk to the flock, if you would? I mean,
Right.
I like to, I guess, tell people, look inward and look to the stars. That's my advice. What's your
That's
advice
it.
to
You,
people?
you
Because I'm
just
sure a
that
lot of people are. I'm sure in 2020, a lot of people, were scared. They
they're
were
scared. Yes.
uncertainty. They don't know financial, emotional health. They're going, what can we
Well,
do?
well, what I try to do, and because any good minister, if he or she, whatever she's preaching to the congregation, is a lesson they have to learn themselves. And I do say, try to put this in a perspective. This is not the first pandemic that we've had. It's not the first that we've had. And people didn't have Zoom, and they didn't have YouTube, and they didn't have, And the second thing is that don't worry about what your neighbor's doing. You have to find your own moral compass. So it's the inner journey. And so there's a lot of noise out here. We live in celebrity culture. There's a lot of noise, and it's easy to get distracted. But however one does it, whether it's religion, whether you're a mystic, it's nature, whether it's all of whether you read poetry, philosophy, you've got to be able to tap in to what's going to keep you sane. But don't worry about what your neighbor's doing, because you're not responsible for that. And a lot of times we look at our neighbor because we don't want to look at ourselves. And so I say you have to start your inward journey, because this is just the beginning. There'll be more pandemics, there'll be more wars and rumors of wars. But if you have some type of inner life, whether it's Gnosticism, whatever it is, you won't be swayed like a bottle in the ocean by every new thing that comes along. And that's really all you can do. The Buddhists were right. You don't worry about things you can't control.
Yeah, good advice indeed. And also, when we last talked, I remember you talking about you had, for the record and for the audience who might not know, you yourself had a visitor experience. I believe you said December 1989.
My first
That
one was
really
December
so.
28,
Oh, so
1989.
you've had more than one.
Oh, yeah. When I wrote the book, Extraterrestrials in the Holy Bible, I didn't put half of them in. Uh, but that's the first one that I saw a being in my room. I mean, I went to a psychiatrist, brother. I mean,
Right.
I think I told you, because they kept coming, and I was having, I was losing, I wasn't sleeping. I was scared to turn the light out at night. It was a mess. Uh, but yeah, December 28, 1989, coming back from Cancun, I went to the pyramids in Chichen Itza in Tulum. And at that time, please don't laugh, folks. I'm glad now. I never looked at Star Trek. I never was inside. I didn't believe in UFOs.
Mhm.
And I'm glad that I had that, even though I was ignorant at the time. I'm glad I had that because people would say, "Oh, you saw that on TV. Oh, you read that." No, as a matter of fact, I started watching science fiction, Star Trek, probably about 3 years ago, 4 years ago. I'm 63 years old. So yeah, but that's what got me thinking about religion. I'm not a nuts and bolts person. I don't care about propulsion systems, and I'm just not. That's not the way I'm wired. I'm more wired to, well, what's the spiritual impact of that? How am I going to act now? How do I deal with my fellow human beings after that? So that's where it took me, and a lot of therapy, uh, and having these visits, and it made me look at my life. They were very frightening, not because they did anything really bad, but to open your eyes in the middle of the night and have someone standing over you around. I mean, that gets your attention. But when I started looking at my life, I started looking at how I've grown. And the fear I had with them, I started thinking, where else in your life, Michael, do you let fear get in the way? Whether it's my personal relationships, whether it was my interpersonal relationships, and so it was like they took me to school in a way, not telling me what to do with my life, but just letting me know that I could be more. Because at that time, I was just sexing and drugging and rock and rolling. I was an actor in New York.
Mm.
It was a very different existence.
Yeah, do you know why they chose you? If just one, I've had two experiences that I've shared on the show, but it was more of the lights in the sky, and I've double checked, and I
Yeah,
wasn't the only one that saw it. He was either, as I've told the audience, he was either extraterrestrials or some sort of advanced military stuff that I witnessed in
yeah,
Europe. Again, I was with many people, and many people around this mountain saw the same phenomena. It was
yeah.
incredible. I've never had a personal one of these beings visit me, but why do you
Yeah.
think they visited you, or why do they visit certain people?
Well, that's the $100,000 question, isn't it? I don't know. Okay, I don't know why they visited me. I think I know. I have some an idea now. A very dear friend of mine who was a very gifted psychic was telling me about them visiting me, and I had never mentioned it to him at all. And he said that at birth, there was uh, like a contract
Mm.
that I had signed or agreed to, that in this life, it may have been even some karmic stuff where um, many centuries ago or many moons ago, where people like me were being persecuted for talking about the stuff that you and I are talking about, and I was one of those people. So turnabout's fair play. I what reson what resonates more with me is that that it was something I chose. That's why I don't use the word abduction. I don't feel I was abducted. I feel that they helped me and they expedited my spiritual growth. Now, I'm not like Brother Stephen Greer, who I respect. I don't think that everyone from who comes here is about kumbaya. There are, just like there are people who are mischievous and malevolent, and there are other energies out there like that. I've been fortunate enough that the beings who have come to visit me have been a little more enlightened, for lack of a better word. But I still wound up going, when it first started happening, I was in a support group in New York. I went to Bud Hopkins, the late Bud Hopkins. Bud and I were friendly. We disagreed on the reason of phenomena, but he had, he had hypnotized me. Dr. Jean Mundy, another gifted therapist and hypnotherapist. She was the first one who let me know that I really wasn't crazy. So, I was just very fortunate.
Oh yeah, these things will make you question your very
Oh,
sanity, your
man,
very
I'm telling
reality.
you.
It's hard to take. I mean, oh, even when I look at stories in the Bible, I go, God, poor Moses or Muhammad or Paul. They must have been like it. They don't talk about it, but visiting this sort of higher intelligence has got to put stress on your mind, your body, everything.
Well, yeah, and your life is going to be at stake because these prophets, the king, if you were a prophet, Miguel, and I'm a king, I get tired of seeing you telling me when I'm doing wrong, and so sometimes you didn't live a long and happy life.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But you had to do it. I mean, you did what you had to do. But yeah, so it's interesting because uh, a couple weeks ago, no, a couple months ago, I was in L.A. I did an episode for Ancient Aliens with William Shatner called Ancient Aliens Meets with, and William Shatner is not, well, he was not, he's not a UFO person.
Mm.
And it always amazes me, like when Charlton Heston played Moses, and here was a guy who was an atheist, and he's doing justice to this role as Shatner is. But we talked. There was a lot of folk on the show, and he started to open up a little bit. But the point I'm trying to make is that now, uh, it's mainstream, like we were talking before, whether it's ancient aliens or UFOs, the hidden evidence. Like you said, the government is talking about it. UFO files are being released to a degree. And so, in some ways, we're making giant strides. I mean, humanity, evolution is glacial. What concerns me, and again, forgive me, I have hay fever, is that do we have the wisdom to go along with all this technology? I mean, we have, if you look just the beginning of the century, with air flights, and here we have supersonic things, we have stealth bombers, we have all this. And all that technology, we make things for war, when we could be using it for other means. And so we're going to wind up being a slave to the technology if we aren't already, or we could do maybe an Atlantis reboot and we just destroy ourselves. I mean, these are all possibilities.
Yes, very much. I have a friend, Chris Knowles, and he has a great series called Lucifer Technologies, and he shows a graph of technology throughout history. And of course, you've got rocks, caves, then suddenly the Sumerians, and it just shoots up, and then
Yeah.
it's put, 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 and then around Roswell, early 50s, it seems all our technology, all our breakthroughs in this century happened then, and we just shot up, and
Yeah.
now we're sort of put, and it definitely makes you wonder. I think in your book you talk about Philip Corso and Vance. You've been interested in his work, right?
Yeah, I read the day after Roswell, and
Yes.
I've heard him on Art Bell, in the old days when Art was still alive. It was a surprise to me. Just found out today about his alleged encounter with the EBE, which you based the title of your book on. So that kind of interested me.
Oh yeah, the extraterrestrial biological entity. Yeah, entity. Yeah, and he meets him in the desert, and the Star Brother goes, "Look, just give me a head start. I'll be out of your hair." And and so basically, Brother Corso says, "Lieutenant, what's in it? What's in it for me?" And the EB says, "A new world, if you can take it." And we are in that new world. The point is, can we survive it? Can we survive it? Can our spiritual, and I don't mean that in any woo-woo way, if you don't like that word, your inner life, can we cultivate that and excavate that and navigate that so that we have the maturity to use the technology that we have? And this is the question. This is the question. Because the technology without the spiritual maturity, it's like giving a gun to a baby.
There's a deeper question, which is who is, quote, we, unquote, because that gets into governments and the structure of power and control, and because you and I, everybody is probably listening to this video cast is probably not the problem entirely. It's the people that make all the decisions at the top on our behalf, maybe, and so forth. And maybe we'd make the same decisions. But once they get up there, to get hooked into this information network that tells them and winds up with having them make the decisions they're making. So I think the system that mankind has evolved and created is really a larger part of the problem. The individuals, you can nudge it from chaos theory, but how can we transform that system of government and control?
Well, I think if we do, I guess you make a good point that we'd all have the Nobel Prize. I don't divorce myself from, I'm part of the system. And I think part of the problem is when people say, it's not me, it's the system. Well, who makes the system? We're all part of it. Nobody's innocent here. And so when we were talking before, for me, I can't control 9 billion people. But what I can do is try to love somebody. What I can do is live the principles and pass them on to my daughter and what have you, and not get caught up. It may be like a drop in the ocean, but it makes a ripple, as cliche as that sounds. And then when I do leave on and go to another body or wherever I go, I can look back and say, you know what? I left my part of the garden a little better than I found it. What we do in the West especially is we get caught up in the outcome. Some of the changes that I'm working for, I may not live to see, but I can also say some of the changes my ancestors, I'm not just talking about being a man of color, my human ancestors, I've seen so many changes now. And I know that I stand on the shoulders of people who maybe did not think I'm not going to see what Michael's seeing, and here we are. But what I don't do is I can't divorce myself. Well, it's really not me. It's really them. We're all in it together. Nobody's innocent. Nobody's innocent.
But look at the media. I mean, I don't think it's a matter of innocent or guilty. I think it's a matter of what will actually make the difference. I mean, when we're busy arguing about Dr. Seuss and Captain Underwear, I don't know if you
Underpants.
Oh,
my kids love that show.
Oh,
I love that
Lord.
show.
Well, it's going. I don't know if you heard about that, but yeah,
I did, Vance. It's disgraceful in some ways, but it's funny. But no. Let me rephrase. I'm not talking about I'm going to blame. What I'm talking about is this. I look back, as I'm sure you and Miguel do. I look back at the spiritual giants that each age creates, and they lived in their own chaos. Jesus lived during the Roman Empire. The Buddha lived in India during, it was a mess. was a hot mess. And I'm saying they couldn't change the world in their, they lived in their own sort of chaos. But they didn't say, I got to fix all this. All they said was, here are some suggestions. Here's some wisdom, whether we say we got it otherworldly or whatever, that can help you keep your peace of mind, keep you connected to something or someone greater than yourself, and to live a somewhat good life, a happy life. So I'm just saying these spiritual giants, men and women, I'm just living in a different time, but it was still the basic moral and spiritual quandary. And so all I'm trying to do, I get up and for most of the day, I try to treat people the way they want to be treated. Not the way I want to be treated, because that's the golden rule. There's a platinum rule. How do you want to be treated? And I do that by asking them that. And that's good enough.
Can't disagree with that. No, that's fine.
Yeah, because we still may die. We're gonna blow ourselves up, maybe. We may not be able to fix it, but you can say you help somebody along the way. That's really all you're responsible for when it comes down to it. I don't care what religion. Really, it's about how my relationship with the cosmos and my place in it, and the planet and my fellow sentient beings. Because I'll go crazy. You can't fix this. It's 9 billion people here. We're never all going to be on the same page at the same time. It's just not possible.
I didn't know we hit 9 billion. Jesus. Yeah, I love what you said, Michael. And this reminds me of there's a documentary, and I don't know who said it. It was a thinker, but for the documentary is Can't Get You Out of My Head. And the quote is, the ultimate hidden truth of the world is that it is something we make and could just as easily make differently. And I think it's a powerful quote. I think you're right. The golden rule is very important. I don't use it enough. I should just wake up and meditate on it to start my day. As I tell people, I wake up, I get on my knees. I try to do some prayers. I'm going to be of service to the divine. Try to start the day right, as imperfect as I am. But I think an important message, as you said, loving each other. But I think it's important to tell everybody, as Jesus says in the Gospel of John, ye are all gods. In other words, we all have purpose. We all have a greater meaning, a destiny that will make the universe itself better. And I think that's an important message, I feel, because, people may feel hopeless, but they also feel like meaningless. Like, what am I doing here?
Yeah. And so, because it can be so overwhelming, but at least, and maybe it's oversimplistic, it works for me that I'm responsible for this part of the garden, and as long as I leave it a little better than the way I found it, then I've accomplished something. Because how else these avatars and saints we were talking about, they had to deal with the same thing. How do you live in empire? Because we live in empire, as Jesus did, as Buddha did. How do you maintain your own sense of dignity and the sense of dignity of your fellow human beings, even when you can't stand them sometimes? And so those truths you can draw on. Whether they were what was true 5,000 years ago will be true now, will be true 5,000 years from now. What goes around comes around. What I put out comes back to me. That's going to be true no matter what. Now, maybe in another galaxy, there's a different set of rules. But what I put out comes back to me.
Awesome. And Vance, do you have a question or any questions from the audience?
I have one question here. Oswald Spengler wants to know if you're a Baptist minister, Reverend Carter, or what denomination are you associated with?
Okay, no, I was raised Baptist. I'm a Unitarian Universalist, and probably a little more outside of that as well. My personal journey is more mystical for all the obvious reasons, but it always was. But as all denominations are imperfect, the one that I resonate with is Unitarian Universalism.
Great. Very good. Thanks.
Thank you.
I haven't seen any other questions yet. A lot of interesting conversations sparking in the chat room.
Yeah. I saw
Here's our thoughts, actions. Let's see. That's one of the questions. That may have been a personal question from one person to another. Let's see. I don't see any right now. Anybody have a question? Oh, are you familiar with the Louisiana State professor Stephen Finley? Oswald wants to know.
No, I'm not.
Okay.
Does work on UFOs and the Nation of Islam. I know, was it Elijah Muhammad, one of the leaders of the Nation of Islam, was a
They have a
big
UFO
UFO
theology.
guy.
Yes.
Oh, they do already. Okay,
Yeah.
I thought it was just Elijah Muhammad. I didn't know it was the part of their theology.
Yeah, and Malcolm, and he has the Nation of Islam. I forget what the professor's name, but he's anyway. Obviously, there's race involved where there's a judgment, and I can't get into it. But I was a little surprised, but I knew it years ago that Elijah Muhammad and the Nation of Islam, they have they talk about the mothership and these types of things.
And so they're able to connect it to the Quran. I mean,
listen,
because the Bible, you and I talk,
one of the books that I listed in my bibliography is UFOs in the Quran. I just bought a book. It was a quick read, 90-some pages, called UFOs in the Baha'i Faith. Now, they're basically saying the same thing, but here you have this knowledge, and who knew? The Baha'is are saying, yeah, we got them in our religion too. So it's interesting times we live in. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, because obviously the Bible has been pruned or to parallel extraterrestrial visitors, otherworldly visitors. Obviously, as you write, when you read the Gnostic Gospels and what the church fathers wrote, these are like star maps. I mean, they're saying, go to Draco, go to this solar system.
Yeah.
I mean, the Gnostics weren't even hiding it. And even today, the Mandeans and the Yesidi are very much about astrology and flights and all that. So This stuff was definitely around in ancient times. And I mean, the book of Revelation is one big star map, don't you think?
Well, the book of Enoch.
Of course.
The book of Jubilees. What's interesting is that we still don't have, at least to my mind, we don't have enough clergy talking about it. We don't have enough clergy talking about it. I mean, even on Ancient Aliens, Giorgio may get into it. I mean, he doesn't have a degree in theology, not that you have to, but there's other people. I mean, I've been on, Rabbi Ariel is on, but you don't see a lot of clergy talking about what's the significance of this. If there's life on other planets, the Vatican does talk about it to a degree, but more in depth. Not unless they're doing it in secret at the UN or something. That in the evenings.
Never know.
But because it's definitely going to affect people's theological, religious, and spiritual beliefs.
There are a lot of theories out there about that, about why NASA names all their things after, constellations.
Yes.
Yeah, but even deeper than that. I mean, obviously, since NASA is concerned with the stars, they might do that. But there's still, Richard Hoagland used to talk about that, and a lot of other people used to talk about the deep connections and coincidences and astrological things that people in NASA do. I don't know, how true it is. But,
and I think what has to be stated too, though, is that NASA is a military organization. NASA is run by the military, And so we got to keep that in mind. And so, a lot of stuff they give us is cover for what, who knows what they're doing up there. Or we're just going up to get some rocks, and we're going to see if there's some water there. And I mean, they've been looking for water on Mars since I was a kid. I know you found the water. What else are you doing?
It kind of looks like the Nevada landscape or Greenland, very strangely. I don't know. What do they say about NASA? Never a straight answer.
Yeah. I mean, that's a military organization. Let's be clear.
Well, it's a fuzzy line. It's not entirely military. There are some scientific explorations and so forth. But there's a crossover there. There is a fuzzy line. Where they're intertwined. In fact, you probably know this, Reverend Carter. The reason the Apollo program was actually the leftovers of Project Horizon. Corso talked about this actually in his book. And Project Horizon was going to establish a military base on the moon. And that's where all the Werner von Braun and the Saturn rockets and all that stuff, that was all part of it. But that got scrapped, allegedly. And
yeah. Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, allegedly.
And the Apollo program resulted in that. So I don't know. I don't know what to believe anymore.
Exactly. See, I'm the same way, and so you just have to kind of go with what resonates and research as much as you can. I mean, because I would not be surprised if we have a base on the moon. I would not be surprised.
I wouldn't either.
No. Let's put it this way. Here's what I know: if we did have one there, they wouldn't tell us about it.
Yes. And I just wonder. Now, this is not a deep thought I'm going to share with you, but we have. On the space station, right? There's an American, there's a Russian. Is there another country? So we can get along in a little space station in a room that's probably bigger than my apartment in New York, but we can't get along down here. I don't get that. You know what I mean? We can work together way up there, but down here, and I'm not saying we don't have differences with countries, but it's like. Really?
Well, but it's like what I said before. I think I can answer that because individuals, living together, we can usually get together, and since we're facing each other, and it's kind of harder to hide lies and so forth. So you don't have a big media establishment to do so with. That's easier. But when you get up into the annals of power, and especially the secret state. The top secret, classified state. All countries that have any sort of power have classifications and state secrets because, it's kind of a latent war. And as soon as you have that secrecy, then you have, what do you want to call it? Dishonesty, it can breed. It's like mushrooms growing under a rock,
Well, yeah. I mean, listen. I got my big boy pants on. I mean, I know that governments lie, and that's how, if you're the greatest country in the world, or you say you are, you think you are, how do you stay that way? Well, you by keeping other people from being the greatest country in the world.
Yeah.
And but that's how you do it. So, but it's like it's oversimplification. It's like when I used to go through the 12-step program for codependency, and you're as sick as your secrets. It's true for families, it's true for individuals, and it's true for nations. Yeah, you're as sick as your secrets.
Yeah, that's what I was taught in AA too. I went for the alcohol and drugs, but
see, this is the stuff we need to come out in the media, the mainstream media, talking about the people who are the rulers, right?
Yeah.
Maybe our governments need a 12-step program. That's what it is.
Yeah. No, you're right, Grant. No, I hear you. I do. I hear what you were saying before. It's both and. I mean, we're responsible as well. But yeah, some of our leaders are really off the rocker, man.
What I want to know is in the base on the moon, wouldn't it end once they open a Starbucks? You let that capitalism in, and the Russians and the Americans will be fighting.
You got bitcoins, and you got a little stock market going on there. Yeah,
Yeah,
the
Well,
yeah.
Wall
hey,
Street,
years ago, there used to be a program that ran on the GT40 PDP-11 graphics thing. It was the Lunar Lander, and I think there was popular versions that came out on PCs later. But there was a McDonald's on the moon, and
Oh
you
my God.
landed, and the whole idea was to land, and then
yeah,
your little astronaut would come out. It was so cute, and this is in the '70s. And the astronaut would bounce and try to get to the McDonald's on the moon. That's how you won.
yeah. You see the golden arches,
Yeah,
there
yeah.
you
No,
are.
they had the
Yeah,
arches. It was
unbelievable,
tiny, and but it was recognizable.
unbelievable.
They'll
I
figure out.
Yeah. So here we are. Uh, I mean, what is this? This is Holy Week.
Hmm.
This is Holy Week, right?
This is it. And I think, yeah, when you're talking about
Well, Christians, it's
people,
Holy Week.
yeah. I think Passover was last weekend, and then I think, well, Greek Orthodox, I think
Yeah.
they'll have it another day. But yeah, this is a big weekend. Yeah, going back to how people can handle it, because as you were talking, maybe people in the Abrahamic faiths cannot. The whole idea of aliens just doesn't work, or extraterrestrials or visitors, but when you couch it in the way of Jesus is the biggest extraterrestrial you can. I know I think in the Gnostic scriptures, the Greek word is allogenes, the stranger, the alien, the foreigner, but as Jesus comes from like far in the stars.
Yeah.
When you couch it that way, I think it makes perfect sense. And I think it's the only way to save religion. I know we've talked about this earlier, is to understand. I mean, I think of, for example, I know people might not like it, but Heaven's Gate was a movement that did a great job of fusing Christianity and ufology into one movement. The problem is they got into the whole death cult thing, and unfortunately, I think when religions start, they are very death cultish, like the Christians, and this is the end of the world, and the Muslims going into war immediately. So I think there is a way to create a new metaphysics, and even Vance would agree. Philip K. Dick did an excellent job in infusing ufology and Christianity. He saw himself as a Christian till he died, but he still believed in the whole star thing.
New biography on him just came. Well, a part of him. I read about it in the Guardian. It's
Oh
it's
wow.
kind of trashy. It sounds kind of. They're just talking about there are probably other, but his relationships with women. So who knows?
No, he
But
was a
anyway,
mess.
but I like
He
him.
was a
Well,
mess.
but you know what? I agree with you. Einstein said science without religion is lame, and religion without science is blind.
Right.
But you know what I think is at stake here, guys? And please jump in. I think it's the concept of God. Because in the West, we have been raised that A, God is the Father, so God's a man,
Right.
but also that God, it's naughty or nice. If you're naughty, you're going to go to hell, and if you're nice, I'm going to bring you to heaven. And I'm not trying to be funny. I'm just saying that this is basically, and so people don't know what to do with a God, in quotes, that's not anthropomorphic. Maybe it's an intelligence that you tap into. Maybe the God that we keep saying is out there, the Gnostics, it's about self-knowledge. That God out there is also me. So some people say, let's get rid of the word God. There's a lot of baggage with it. But and then I hear people say, God's an astronaut. And then I hear people say, I don't want my God to be an astronaut. But we make God in our own image. For me, part of growing up was saying there wasn't a God watching everything I did. Now, when I meditate, I try to tap into the energy of God or the universe, the multiverse, or when I pray. But it's not somebody with arms and legs and a torso. God, and I really do think that's not only it, but a big part of that is how do I even imagine something or someone that's unimaginable But where does God fit into the ancient astronaut theory? I mean, there are a couple of books by RLDO. They were written back in the 70s. Is God an astronaut?
Mm-hmm.
And so when people are so used to seeing this being as a man that gets angry, that fights, that loves, that whatever, it's like me, instead of like another human being, instead of where in the East, they may say God is non-being, or well, there is no God in that sense. In the West, that's a very difficult concept to it's like asking someone to throw everything away that they were raised with.
No,
Couldn't
it's
agree
not
more.
easy. Yeah, I mean, as Carl Jung said, God is the most powerful part of our psyche, and some of us will project our own humanity onto them. But at the same time, I
Yeah.
mean, if we're looking at Yahweh, Yahweh himself might be an ancient astronaut who might or might not be that far removed from us, don't you think? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, Yahweh was a god in the sense of uh, he was. If we say he was an ancient astronaut, he certainly had anger management problems. He certainly, killing all the firstborn to prove a point.
it
I
was
mean,
a
that
long
doesn't
trip
sound.
on the ship through the
Yeah.
galaxy. He was
No,
just
yeah,
tired, like,
yeah. I
oh,
didn't get a lot
Neko.
of sleep last night.
No
I'm just
golden rule for
I got
irritable.
Yahweh.
I gotta
Yeah,
create a new species. My
yeah,
God, shit.
yeah, and everybody's got to be circumcised, and you can't even marry. And this guy spends a lot of time on thinking about the genitalia. Man, I mean, and I want to, listen, it's Pat, so I don't want to offend people, but this is a person. It's hard for me to. Okay, this is the book of Ezekiel,
Hmm.
chapter 4. This is the Hebrew translation. He's telling Ezekiel to go. He has him deliver a message. He says, I want you to eat as a bar. For those of you who have the book in front of you, it's chapter 4, verse 12. Eat it as a barley cake. You shall bake it on human excrement before their
Hmm.
eyes. So
Yeah.
said the Lord, shall the people of Israel eat their bread unclean among the nations to which I will banish them. Ezekiel says, but my Lord God, my person was never defiled, nor have I eaten anything that died of itself or was torn by beasts from my youth until now. In other words, I kept kosher. So the Lord says, okay, I allow you cow's dung instead of human excrement. Prepare your bread on that. Now, that doesn't sound like a God. What a guy. You don't have to have human excrement. I'm not making it up. This is here. And so my
Yeah.
point being and all that, it's not to embarrass, but that doesn't seem like a guy or a God or a woman or whatever that I want to say a prayer to. And so this is in there. This is, there are other places where throw the babies up against the rocks and must, how can we, but there were people who will argue, Michael, you're being picky. That's just how God is. I had someone told me, you want your God to be nice and warm and fuzzy. I'm like, no, I don't need that. But I can't worship a God that says throw a baby up against a wall, up against a rock. But my point is the resistance we get when we try to say, can we look at God a different way? Can we look at our religions a different way?
Yeah, yeah, well said indeed. And if we were created by these beings or visitors, what do you think was the reason? Because things certainly got out of hand. I don't know if they were like an Anunnaki, he wanted slaves, or in the Gnostic Gospels they want to feed off of our energy. I mean, why would they have created us? What do you think, Michael?
Well, yeah, I met Zachariah Stitchen when he was still alive. He lived like 6 blocks from me in
Wow.
the Upper West Side in New York, so I was always fascinated with his, the Earth Chronicle series. I don't know. I mean, the Anunnaki thing seems plausible, but I always go back to there were different gods on the planet. So then the question becomes, which group of extraterrestrials are you talking about? The Anunnaki, good help's hard to find. Okay, then you got another group who may, and so. And then I think about the 10 Commandments that were really 613, but they got them down to 10. But even you shall have no other gods before me. And being a good old religious liberal, of course, we say, oh, well, those are the gods of sex or the gods of money, and that could be very true. But it can also be true that Yahweh is saying, look, I'm jealous. I have some issues. I don't want you going over to that church over there. I don't want you going to that temple over there. So that's what I think about like when people say now, what do you think they want? Who? The Greys, the Arcturians, the Reptilians? Okay, those from Andromeda, the Tall Whites. What group are you? The Nordics? Which race are you talking about? And we forget that it's not just one extraterrestrial mind. Everybody may have a different agenda.
It's a busy universe out there.
Yeah, teeming with life. But I do go back to this. As Pollyanna-ish as it sounds, I believe, and everybody's on a different path of evolution, that we are here to learn to love. To love. Now, I'm not talking about kumbaya or, I'm talking, there's so many definitions of love. The Greeks got eros and there's agape. But I'm talking about, M. Scott Peck said it best for me. His definition of love was when I extend myself for the growth of another human being. Now, there's other definitions, but I kind of like that one. But I think that's what moves the needle. Whether you believe in UFOs, whether you don't, whether you believe in the Tooth Fairy or the Loch Ness Monster, on some level, whether it's this lifetime or other lifetimes, we get to learn what it means to love each other, to love this creation, this planet that we own. And that's a tall order. Maybe that's why it takes more than one lifetime to do. But that's what I think the goal of life is. I remember Alan Watts, the philosopher, reading, he says that the goal of life is to simply live it. Mm-hmm. That's the meaning of life, to live it. Life is to be lived. And one of the problems, as he said so eloquently, is that we take seriously what the gods made for fun.
I love it. Yes.
Yeah.
Joseph Campbell said, what's the meaning of life? He's like, what's the meaning of a snail? It just is. Live in the moment and the experience.
Yes. Yeah. And so we can get caught up into, but that's a tall order. But we've been left clues, whether it's from the people of the book, from the monotheistic religions, whether it's from native or aboriginal cultures, whether it's from star people, they've all given us clues on what it means to at least try to live the good life, the beautiful life.
Amen. Vance, do you have any questions or questions from the audience?
Well, one question's from a while ago. What do you think, Reverend Carter, of all the conditioning that seems to be preparing us for some sort of the ET disclosure? All the recent government disclosures. They keep teasing, oh yeah, we have this, we have that, and
it's a great question.
Suspicion, should we hold it with some suspicion? Is this real? Is this it? Are they going to tell us, or what do you think?
I think, thank you, whoever said that. I think a couple of things. The first thing I think, and I feel, is that we're being prepared. Someone I just found out about this wonderful show. Haven't seen it yet, but people know, called The Resident Alien. It's on
Never heard of
Zulu.
it.
It's a comedy, but yeah, a guy crash lands here. He wants to do something nefarious. A little boy sees him and finds out who he really is. And anyway, so it's on Hulu. I just went right back to watch People of Earth. I bought the 2 seasons. I love that series. The point I'm trying to make is that we're being spoon fed. Because see, one day, because of our technology, cameras, whatever, one day there's going to be a sighting that cannot be explained away. That you can't say it's a weather balloon. You can't say it's swamp gas. And and maybe one day we may see a being get out. I think that the government is trying to get ahead of this thing, and they're just throwing out these balloons to see how people are taking it. And it's a concerted thing. There's Ancient Aliens. There's more UFO shows on now that are hits than probably ever in the history of our country. So the answer to that question is, I think, to a degree, yes, there's disinformation, there's misinformation, but we are being prepared that we are not alone. My question is, when that happens, in order to keep us from being cosmic citizens and saying, hey, man, this is something big that I'm part of, will we be told that they are enemies and that we need to unite against them? That's the question.
Yeah.
Because we spend so much money on military hardware, you got to have an enemy. You got to, you got to have something to fight somebody with.
Can't make more bombs if you don't use them.
Yeah. So that, to me, that's the question. Will we be told that they are, is this going to be Independence Day? That's the question.
Well, we will be, I think, told that they're an enemy. We just don't know who's going to be saying that.
Yeah, you're right, man. Yeah. Because it's all about control and fear. That's why we've been lied to for all these many years. But now it's like, okay, they're getting smart. They're catching on. We're going to have to come up with something else. You don't want your populace saying, that's my brother out there. That's my sister. You don't want that, because then it will unite. You want us saying, oh, they're different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, look at that gray ball-headed, you know what? His mother's a blah, blah, blah. Look at that reptilian, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that's what you want, because then we can keep fighting.
Yep. And we'll project our own violence upon them, or what we want.
It's Machiavellian, but guess what, guys? It works. It works.
Yeah, it's unfortunately it's always worked. But don't you feel it's sort of insulting that they have to keep it from us, like we're kindergartens?
I do. Yeah, but there are some people who will jump out of a window or pull the trigger. There's always going to be that.
Right.
But yeah, it's this. But remember, this is all we know. It's this. I was talking to a friend of mine. A cop sees everybody as a criminal. Okay,
right.
If you're a military person, everything's a possible national security threat. If the only tool you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
Mm-hmm. The military-industrial complex. I saw some more questions, Vince. Anything from the audience or yourself?
Well, let's see. Should we fear the aliens or welcome them? Astrox wants to know.
Well, we'll have Space Force. We're already ready for them, or we will be ready.
Yes, and we have the general who used to be on The Office, right, Michael? Anyway, no. Again, that's a big question. I would say don't fear anything if humanly possible. And it's not a binary question. Is it either this or that? It's like, can we just see where they're coming from? The particular ones that we run into. It's not, we're taught to think either or. It's you got more choices. I got more choices when I go buy a pair of jeans than I do when I want to vote. But that's a whole nother story. But it's not either or. It depends on who they are, how they
Yeah.
present themselves.
It's like a truck. You don't have to be afraid of it unless it's coming right at you, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's a more nuanced question than that. But as
Yeah.
far as fear goes, as much as you can, you don't want to fear anything because that's going to be part of the problem.
It's the mind killer. Yep.
Yeah.
Here's another one. Reverend, are you familiar with the work of Kenneth Grant and the aliens from Klipoth? It's more like dark interdimensional beings invading our reality. It says Seraphim Ascending.
No, not familiar with that.
How about Valiant
Kenneth
Thor? That one's from me. That's a classic.
Yeah, Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange just wrote that book.
Oh, right. Frank Strange's.
Frank
That's right.
Strange, yes.
That's right.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
think of the Marvel character.
Who
Yeah.
was it? Yeah.
I love
Who
Doctor
was it?
Strange.
Yeah,
So
it's a strange name, right? Who was
you hooked
a
me.
yeah, he was a clergy person.
Yep. There's so many different contacts that people say they've had. You got to wonder which ones are which.
I'm telling you. And there's a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of out and out lies. And so sometimes it's okay to say, I don't know. Or I'm not sure. You have to go with what resonates with you.
Like
I mean,
Billy
because
Meyer, right?
yeah, because you want to be careful because we live in a time of great information. I got, but I'm 63. I'll be 64 this year. I'm looking for wisdom. And we live in a society that doesn't know the difference between the two. I can get all the information I want, but there's such a thing as being an educated fool. I need some wisdom because that's what's going to help me navigate the times that are coming, the good and the not so good.
Whatever it is has to resonate with people. They
Yeah.
have to feel it inside them. They can't just be told. Otherwise, they can be told something else. They'll believe something else. Just
Yeah,
robots.
yeah. And most people don't know what they feel. I mean, you could get in a conversation with someone tomorrow and say, "What do you feel about climate change?" First thing they'll say is, "Well, I think." Well, I didn't ask you what you thought. I asked you what you felt. And because we worship the mind and the intellectualism, and listen, don't get me. I love the life of the mind. I love intellectual acuity, but what makes us human is that we feel. I mean, Weimar Germany had the highest number of PhDs in Europe during World War II,
Really?
but they still made soap out of people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they still know how to make soap out of people. So we know that the intellect is not going to get you there. The intellect alone. But what do you feel? Do we know what we feel? Do you even know what you feel sometimes? And sometimes it's good to say, I don't know, but we got to thaw out because the world we have now is because of reason and thought. Now, I'm not against reason, but this, as they say in 12 steps, our best thinking got us here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it
There's
also
another one.
reminds
right?
me of there's
Our best thinking got us here.
yes, we thought too much. I mean, there's that saying by George Orwell that says some ideas are so idiotic only an intellectual would believe. And we see that all the time. We're like, what the from the streets, we're like, they really believe this shit.
Yeah,
They're really
yeah.
gonna go for this shit.
Yeah.
Like you said.
Yeah. So look around you. Our best thinking got us here. So, it's just not here. You got a whole other apparatus here. You got a heart. You got a soul. You have intuition. That plays a part in it. But if you don't know what you feel because you're numb, or you've built up armor from your emotions, or you can't be vulnerable, or maybe you grew up in a household where they beat you to death or whatever, or you were abused, you don't know what you feel. You don't know. How can you? And that's part of what makes us human.
Yeah.
The
And
ability to have empathy, the book's called compassion. I actually like compassion better than love. It's a better sounding word because love in the West is like, how can I achieve this? Some people think if I let people walk all over me, oh, I love them. I just love them, and they're walking all over you. No, compassion is to me feels better. But if you're up here, up in these lobes here all the time, it's a hot mess.
Yeah, and at the same time, I wouldn't worry about all the alien stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
there was a time you look at mythology, and you've got fairies and spirits and gods and demigods, and then the work of great thinkers like Joseph Campbell or Carl Jung or Mircea Eliade. You start to see there's patterns and archetypes, and they found out that these things actually have a meaning, a purpose, and don't have to be overwhelmed by all these stories. And
Right.
at the end of the day, like the spirit world, don't you think, Michael, there's perhaps a little interactivity? I mean, what we believe and how we feel can affect how these beings appear to us. I'm sure
That's
that's
what
got to
quantum
be.
physics. That's what
Yeah.
quantum physics is telling us. And also, we do know that that some ETs will appear to you in a way that wouldn't frighten you. And there are also spirits out there that maybe don't have your best interest in mind. What's the quote from Hamlet? The devil hath power to assume a pleasing shape. I'm not saying you should believe in the devil. I'm just saying Shakespeare wrote that, I'll put it like this: all that glitters ain't gold. So there's a lot of symbolism and lessons to be learned, and
the tree by its fruit, right?
yes, the wise rabbi said this 2,500 years ago: by their fruits you shall know them.
Indeed. And what are some of your favorite science fiction movies that you look at, Michael, and you go, this is cool. This is
You know
good.
what? I'm still with the day the earth stood still.
Mm-hmm.
With Michael Rene. I like Contact with Jodie Foster and Matthew McConaughey.
Solaris. Do you like Solaris?
I didn't see it.
Oh, you should see it because
see it.
you would love it. I predict you will love it.
Yeah.
The original version or the American remake?
I just saw the original Russian version, and I can speak for that one. The American one, if it's true to the message of the first one, it's really about compassion. Really,
Mhm.
it's about So it's very, very.
I'll check it out.
Yeah,
I like
I'm gonna
some of
check
the
it
old
out too.
1950s. I like 2001. Remember
Mhm.
that? I'm aging myself. Yeah, those are just some of them. I'm still trying
Yeah.
to get through some Star Trek stuff. I really haven't seen much of it. I feel like I woke up, I'm Rip Van Winkle, and now I'm just, people are like, you haven't seen that? Oh, that's so old. And I'm like,
well, Captain Kirk hasn't watched Star Trek either. That just
He
came out.
hasn't?
no,
No,
he doesn't.
he
No,
isn't believing it.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
he just makes a living from it.
Well,
Yeah.
you're saying he hasn't watched his own shows?
Yeah, no, it came
He's
out just recently. Yeah,
Wow.
at a
That's
couple of
something.
places. Either that or he's
Wow.
not admitting it.
Look, there are a lot of actors who don't do it. I mean, and even, I'm not even an actor and I talk that caliber. I haven't watched the episode of that we did with him. My girlfriend has it, but I haven't. I mean, I got paid. I did it. It was fun. I just haven't seen it.
And what did they ask you? What are is there a theme to this show? What do they usually ask you in Ancient Aliens? I'm
Well,
one of the people who hasn't watched it.
Ancient Aliens. Well, it's basically ancient astronaut theory.
Right,
They
right.
did a special. Oh, it was me. It was a guy named Rabbi Ariel. We were doing the religious part, and then there were a couple scientists there. Pardon me. Eric Van Doniken was there via
Oh,
Zoom.
wow.
Linda Morton Howell. I forget the Japanese brother, the physicist with the white hair. Anyway, he was there.
Nishu
Yes,
Kaku.
yes. And we were just kind of kicking it about, do these beings exist? And what would it mean? What about science? How does science fit in? Nick Pope was there. He was on the panel. Yeah. But it's on the History Channel. Sometimes it runs in marathons. It's been on for like 15, 16 seasons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just not on my radar that much.
Yeah.
Try to be choosy with my television. I don't watch much television.
Me either. I don't. I
whenever
read
I
a
can.
lot, but I don't watch much TV.
Mhm.
It's so much good stuff on that I can't get hooked. There's so many good. There's a new series out. Okay, talking about earlier, called Debris. It's about some extraterrestrial debris that's landed on Earth, and the American intelligence agencies are working with the British intelligence agencies before these other countries find out and get a hold. It's extraterrestrial. It's Roswell-ish, not in the sense of ships and stuff, at least not yet. But this technology, you get this, you own the world. And it's called Debris. I think it comes on Tuesday nights or something. So
Interesting. Yeah,
we're being prepared, man. We're being led.
I know. They just keep it up. I watched a movie on Amazon, The Vast of the Night, and it was a really good movie, more about the extraterrestrial, but from a 50s stance with the saucers and all that good
Yes.
stuff. So, but yeah, there is no lack of good content when it comes to UFOs, good UFOs book, everything.
There's always Twin Peaks.
Yeah, that hits every angle, every religious UFO, everything. It's
yep.
so
X-Files was inspired by Twin Peaks.
Really?
Peaks.
Yes. A lot of other shows, Lost, a lot of other shows, and they had the Major Garland Briggs. He was in the station listening to the signals from space.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, cherry pie. Oh, God. Don't get me started on Twin Peaks. I've watched it like 3 times already last few months.
A lot of good stuff. Yeah, I need to get back. Well, as we're getting to the end, any last question you think, Vance, from the audience that Michael should have? Anything cool?
Yeah, there was one more. Jung's UFO book.
I have it right over. I have it over there.
What do you think?
I think Jung was onto something. I think that talking about the language of symbols and what the circle represents and what this could represent. Of course, this man was a genius. I'm also reading a really good my second biography on Carl Jung.
Cool.
But he did not believe they were real material. And no, we now know that that's wrong in that sense. But as far as the symbolism and what the circle means, and it's a universal symbol and what it could mean, because the soul speaks to us in symbols.
Mm-hmm.
So he was ahead of his time.
I think
he did request the CIA for UFO files, and they rejected him. So he was trying to dig, but
I think some of the living beings, living plasma beings. Now there's a tie-in with Philip K. Dick. The plasmoids, right? The plasmatics. What do you think of that, Reverend Carter? Some of them that we see up in the sky are actually living energy systems.
Vance, I got to tell you something. I believe anything is possible. I do. I believe that from my own personal experiences, from what other people, from books I've read, I believe that anything is possible, that consciousness goes on, and you can have beings that don't even need bodies. They can be just pure energy, pure consciousness. And some would argue that's what we go back to when we, shed this mortal coil, as Hamlet says. But so I believe anything is possible. And that's what makes life worth living. for me,
Yeah, discovery.
anything
No.
is possible, and that there's a universe that is teeming with life. And I
It's a big
and I've
universe
come a
out there.
long way, because I used to be a person who said I didn't believe in UFOs. And I remember someone saying they were so stunned. This is when I was a kid. And they said, "Really?" And they said, "Why? Why not?" I said, "Because it's not in the Bible." Now I've spent my adult life trying to convince people
It's in the
that they
Bible.
are in the Bible.
Yeah.
So what a difference 40 years, what a difference 50 years makes.
How
Yeah.
the wheel turns.
Yeah.
How the
Nothing gets by
wheel turns.
me. Nothing gets by me. It took me 50 years, but nothing. I came around.
It's a good place to be
Wonderful.
from, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
man.
exactly. Well, wonderful. It's been a great conversation.
Yes,
As
man.
always, as I must say, this will be on YouTube right after we end. It'll be on Facebook. I will put the audio version in a few days on YouTube's iHeartRadio, all the podcast providers out there, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts. It's going to be Spotify. So you will have it out there so you can listen to it at your convenience. And we really appreciate the support. We got some great guests coming in April. We will be having Richard Smoley, Stephen Flowers, Bernardo Castrup, and we'll have a whole bunch of great topics, including runes, magic, some shows on Jung, and we'll even have the director of the film A Glitch in the Matrix will make an appearance probably in April. So a lot of good stuff happening. I appreciate your company. I appreciate our great guests, and it's always wonderful. And I certainly appreciate your company, Vince. Thanks for showing up and keeping us here accompanying this arm of the Milky Way.
Oh, this is great. I wish it was 2 hours longer.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, we could get into this stuff, man. But I just want to thank you for having me on the show. Want to thank Mark Eddie for kind of hooking us up again.
Yeah,
And Miguel, can you send me a link when this comes out? Because I want to
of
send it to my
course.
friends. Yeah.
I will send
Yeah.
you the YouTube link
I
when
got
it's
kicked off.
out.
I got kicked off of Facebook, so I can't go back on.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll get you YouTube, but when the audio version is out, we'll get you on it. I don't even want to ask why you got kicked off of Facebook.
Oh, man. I got kicked off.
We're
I
all
got kicked.
learning. We're still learning to control
Yeah,
our
yeah,
emotions, huh?
Is the
yeah,
answer the aliens from Canceltron?
yes. I got kicked off. Yeah.
All right. Well, Michael, as always, it's been a great conversation,
Oh,
and
always,
we
brother.
look forward to our next talk.
You know where to find me.
Yes, I do.
Meantime, stay well.
Looking at the stars. Well,
And to
thank
you.
you, and
See you,
good
man.
night, everybody. Thank you for
Great
showing
being
up.
with you.
Take care.